All right, hello everyone. Welcome to your daily dose of awesome. That is 15-ish minutes of motivation, inspiration, and education so you can get your day going strong. Today, I want to give you a quick tip on how you can quickly improve your conversions. And it's going to be leveraging a classic psychological effect known as the Zeigarnik effect or Zeigarnik effect. Not really sure to pronounce it. I tried looking it up, and people were pronouncing it in a ton of different ways. So if you want to do some more research and look it up, you can probably kind of phonetically get there. But it's a classic study in psychology, and it's really going to help you guys improve. This translates into almost every aspect of marketing. So you can use this for emails, ads, blog posts, videos, etc. Pretty much any kind of advertising or any kind of way that you guys are going to leverage to build your business, this is going to help you. So let's talk about the study. So again, it's called the Zeigarnik effect, and what they found. I mentioned this is a classic. The study was first conducted many years ago, and actually in the earlier half of the 20th century. And what the study found was that an unfinished task, an uncompleted task, was more easily recalled than a completed task. And so the study initially started out with waiters and waitresses. And what the researchers found is that if you were to quiz a waiter or a waitress about an order that's in process, so essentially perhaps the customer has ordered their food and they have not received their food yet, that waiter or that waitress is going to have a really strong level of recall of exactly, who ordered what, what are essentially the intricacies of their order. But once that order is delivered, once all the food is on the table, all of a sudden it's like the mental slate is wiped clean, and those details are no longer needed, so they're just kind of gone. So the waiter or the waitress, once they've completed the transaction essentially with those customers, can really no longer very effectively remember what that order was. And so that's how the study began. They then moved from kind of a more, that's sort of a more casual setting. It was then moved into more of a laboratory setting. And they actually had participants complete puzzles. And what they found was if they interrupted a study participant while they were in the process of completing a puzzle, they had a better recall of which steps they had taken and which steps they had yet to take versus someone that completed the puzzle and then their memory became kind of fuzzy about exactly what they'd done and in which order they had done things. So again, an uncompleted task is much more easily recalled than a completed task. Now, this translates into a lot of aspects of your life. I've even read where writers will very commonly stop writing for the day, like mid-sentence, kind of mid-thought, mid-scene, so that when they then return to whatever they were working on, they're kind of thrust back into an unfinished, incomplete situation and scene with, again, the idea of leveraging this Zeigarnik effect. Okay, so how does this apply to marketing? How does this apply to what you guys are going to be doing? So, and probably the best way is perhaps even by example. I mean, how many movies or TV shows have we seen where they leverage cliffhangers, right? It's a really common narrative device to use a cliffhanger. And any kind of like show, of course, that's serialized, that's coming out on a weekly basis. I mean, how many shows will end? And sometimes it's even frustrating, right, for the viewer, where perhaps there's like a mid-season finale or a season finale, and it ends on a big cliffhanger. I remember the big one, perhaps this past year, everyone was all mad at The Walking Dead, right, because you're set up, you're in the middle of a scene, and a lot of shows do this, right, where they'll tease you, and they're like, oh, someone's gonna die, right, and you're like, well, who's it gonna be? And then they make you wait, right? Of course, they're not going to just kind of like, of course they're not going to open the season, or they're not going to open that particular episode with the big reveal, right? They're going to make you wait. They're going to literally, they might make you wait, over that mid-season finale. They might make you wait over the summer. And then, of course, they're going to make you wait till the very end of the episode before the big reveal happens, or another big cliffhanger is presented to you. So it's not necessarily like the most elegant way of telling a story, but because of course you can frustrate your viewers, but I mean, of course the viewers tune in. There's kind of this, I wouldn't say addiction, but it kind of is, right? Where, this uncompleted thing, the mind strives for completion. We all crave completion, and whenever there's something incomplete, where it's frustrating, right? We want to complete and kind of wrap up. In marketing, we use the term open loop quite a bit, and it's a very similar idea where you want to be opening loops and then, kind of holding off on closing those loops to keep your readers' attention. So again, you've no doubt seen this in television shows. Another device where this is commonly used is, I'm sure you've probably seen, this happens a lot in movies and TV shows, where you'll be introduced to a scene or a situation, and it will kind of be in the aftermath of something that's happened, right? You're kind of like at some point, and when you're watching it, it's the present, but then all of a sudden they rewind, and then they go back, and they're like, okay, well, how did we get to that place, right? That's another way of kind of leveraging this device and creating that kind of cliffhanger of an experience. Yes, exactly, John. Well, I'll tell you how that works later. And you see this a lot in blog posts, of course. I mean, how often do you see, and when I kicked off this Daily Dose of Awesome, right, I said, hey, I'm going to tell you how to improve your conversions, but first, I'm giving you now all this context, which, of course, the idea is that this context is enjoyable, and you guys are going to, learn a few things, instead of me just going straight into how to apply this to your business and how to increase your conversions, right? So instead we have, this kind of story, kind of preamble that, with the goal of kind of getting you guys invested and sucked into what we're talking about here today. You can do that in blog posts, anything where you want to kick off with a promise, right? You want to kind of start, right? It's good to begin with a benefit. It's good to begin with like, hey, you're going to learn something, but then kind of take a step back, right? Just do exactly like the TV show or the movie that begins in the aftermath, right? Like, here's the benefit, and then rewind, go all the way back to, all right, now let's set the stage. Okay. So the main context in which I want to share this and how to increase these conversions, because again, this idea, this Zeigarnik effect, which again, very similar to an open loop, you can use this in so many different ways. You can use this again in emails, you can use it in videos, blog posts, everything. It really applies across the board. But one of what I really want to talk to you guys about today is how to do this in terms of a blog post, and how to really set your reader up for that opt-in. Now, if you want to see how to kind of leverage this effect with email, just check out some email subject lines, because just by way of by the kind of nature of an email subject line, it's by nature brief, and it's by nature you can't cram but so much into an email subject line. So it almost kind of built in has this constraint that leads you to almost naturally kind of tee your reader up for a bit of a cliffhanger experience, right? To kind of build that kind of momentum, to get them to want to, on the basis of curiosity, to get them to want to open that email. Okay, so that's a context you guys can easily kind of see how that works. But it's a little bit more, I won't say complex, but it's kind of a little bit more of a fleshed out process in terms of a blog post. And this is something that I think will really help you guys, because as I'm reading your blog posts, which I love to do, by the way, when I'm reading your blog posts, one of the things that I see commonly is, you'll have a great idea for a piece of content. You say, oh man, that would be great. Maybe it's, 5 tips to do that, or 7 steps to do this, or whatever it is, right? And then when it comes time for that call to action, all of a sudden it's like there's either a bit of a breakdown, I'm not sure if it's a timidity, but a lot of times what I'll see is a call to action that's literally like 1 sentence long. And I can tell you right now that 1 sentence is not enough to build enough momentum and curiosity and desire to get someone to opt in. So if you write a great post, right, you can have everything can be going for this post, right? You can have an awesome title for your post. You can have written awesome content. There can be a great story. There can be a really good payoff in terms of the information and the value that you're delivering. But the whole point of that is to get people to opt in to your list, right? That's the whole point of the blog post. So you can't botch the close. And again, this would also apply to doing a video, right? You don't want to botch the close on doing a video, a Facebook Live, whatever it is. But we're going to talk about this just in terms of blog posts for today, because that's what I spend most of my time thinking about. So when it comes to the close, when it comes to the call to action, what you really want to do is think about how the information that the reader just learned fits into the overall context of their business and how it fits into kind of the overall context of whatever it happens to be, which is probably going to be marketing, perhaps attraction marketing, whatever, right? Whatever you're teaching on, think about how the information they just learned kind of fits into the big picture, and then set them up for a situation where they feel incomplete with the knowledge that they currently have. So they've read a post, they've gotten some value from that post. However, they don't have a complete picture just based on reading that post of what it's going to take to really implement that information, right? And this is, I'm speaking generally here, but this is almost universally true. Okay, so think about this. Let's say you wrote a post about traffic. Let's say you wrote a post about, hey, here's 12 ways that you can get traffic to your offer, right? And you go through, you're like, hey, you know what? You can post on social media, you can do a podcast, you can create video, whatever, right? You go through, here are all your tips, here are all these places you can get leads. Now, what's next, right? Where does getting leads fit into the overall context of a business, right? Because let's be frank, a business has a lot of different moving parts. And even if you're an affiliate, your business still has a number of moving parts, right? Because these tips for getting leads, those are great. But what else do you need? Well, you need to know how to convert those leads. And that's actually what we're talking about today, right? I'm not telling you how to get leads. I'm telling you how to convert leads. So if I wanted to get you to opt into something, I'd say, hey, you know what? I just told you a great way to convert your leads, right? Now let's talk about how to get some prospects on your, whatever it is, your blog post, capture page. Let's talk about how to get those people so that you can use the information that you're learning right now, right? That's creating a gap in knowledge. That's creating like, hey, I've given you some actionable information, but check it out. In order for that to really be valuable, you need to learn this other thing as well. And where are you going to learn that other thing? You're going to learn that other thing in this resource that I'm going to give you, right? After the opt-in. Okay, so, and this applies to everything, every kind of content that you're going to potentially be creating. There's going to be another part of it, right? So it could be traffic and conversions, right? You could be talking about leadership, right? You could be giving, like, here's some tips for presenting, here's some tips for leadership, here's some tips for mindset, right? And all those things are fantastic, of course. But, you know, what do those things mean if you don't have an audience? Right? Like, hey, leadership is great. You've got to have leadership. You've got to have, you know, posture. You've got to have tone on the phone, whatever it is. But if you don't have someone to talk to, or if you don't have an audience to put, you know, your leadership essentially in front of, then what good does that information do you, right? There's always kind of another piece of the puzzle that you're going to need to know in order to really take action on a piece of information. Because think about it, again, a business has a lot of different moving parts. You've got traffic, you've got content, you've got conversion mechanisms, you've got follow-up. A lot of things go into what we do. And of course, you've got you know, audience building, you've got social media strategies. You know, there's so many different things, right, that go into the kinds of businesses that we're building on a very granular level on one side, and even on a big picture level. So always be thinking about, with the content you're creating, you know, how does this fit into the big picture? And then how do I make my reader or my viewer, listener, watcher, whatever, how do I make them feel kind of incomplete, right? Because you want to deliver value, of course. You're going to be delivering value in your content, but you want them to feel like, great, I learned something from you. That's step one. I'd like to learn more from you. Of course, that's hopefully a given. But then B, you want to kind of tee them up for what it is. What is the next step? What's the next thing they need to know to really take action on that information? And that could be, because again, I mentioned when I first kicked this call off that a lot of times what I see is a really short call to action. I see a call to action that's like one sentence, right? So someone's written a great post, and they're like, hey, you want to learn more about that? Click here. And it's like, there's not quite enough momentum, and there's not enough curiosity and desire built into just that one sentence. Another times what I'll see is people will try and really load up on the benefits, right? They'll have a great post, and all of a sudden it's like benefit city, right? It's almost like bullet points of benefits. It's like, hey, you want to know, we'll take the attraction marketing formula, for example. It's like, hey, you want to know how my buddy Fernie makes, generates, 300 to 500 leads every single day and makes, millions of dollars online? Well, click here to find out. And again, that, while benefits are great, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's certainly a place for using that kind of benefit, right? And a benefit is really anything that it's making a claim that's going to radically improve that person's situation and whatever they're looking to achieve, right? There's a place for that. But what's more powerful, significantly more powerful and significantly more effective for converting that audience is going to be using this logic, right? Using this logical process of, hey, you learned, A and B, and now you need to learn C. And where are you going to learn C? Click here to get, C, whatever C happens to be. Or, you learned ABC and you needed to learn XYZ, so click here and get XYZ. That is way more powerful than trying to load up on benefits or kind of trying to teach on abstract notions of, hey, learn how to become the hunter instead of the hunted and get people showing up, contacting you with credit card in hand, all that, right? That stuff's great, and you can pepper that kind of stuff in there, right? This is the kind of information that you might see on one of our capture pages or in some of our call to actions. A lot of times you'll see there'll be a benefit there, right? The 10-minute traffic machine is something we just published a post today promoting the 10-minute traffic machine, and that product is well known. The reason we have that product or what really kicked off the information in that product was the fact that we were able to take a $10 test campaign and turn that into over 6 figures of revenue, right? That's a huge benefit. Who doesn't want to turn a $10 test campaign into, I think it's $100 and perhaps $26,000 worth of revenue, right? That's huge, right? That's a big, big benefit. And most people would probably say, wow, I really want to know how you did that. I want to know more about that. So that's great. That's a great benefit. However, there still needs to be a logic in that call to action. So if you check out the post that was actually just published today, and Vitaly just mailed for that post today. Let's see if I can recall what that call to action looked like. You'll see, the benefit is there, but you'll also see the post was about the 4 kind of primary Facebook advertising objectives, right? The 4 primary different types of campaigns that you can run, right? Your likes campaigns, your clicks to website campaigns, and your engagement ads, right? All that stuff. So that's all in the post, right? That's what you're learning in the post. But then once you get to the end of the post, it's like, hey, check it out. Those are, yes, now you've learned the 4 primary types of ads that we use here at Elite Marketing Pro. But guess what? That fits into an overall traffic ecosystem. So essentially even though you learned something, you're not necessarily going to be able to take action on that information unless you also kind of know how those ads sort of synergistically work together to form, again, this traffic ecosystem, right? So how are you running the likes campaigns? How are you running those what kind of content are you using to run those clicks to website ads and engagement ads? And then what kind of strategy you're using with video posts, and how are you engaging your audience, and then how are you retargeting those audiences, right? There's a whole lot that goes into a traffic strategy, right? And the post covered just a little bit of that information. Granted, it's a meaty post, there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot more to learn to really be able to leverage that information. So even though the call to action is going to share some benefits, even though that call to action is going to say, hey, here's how this $10 test campaign turned into over $120,000 worth of revenue, right? Even though that's a part of the psychology of that call to action. What's perhaps even more important is just the logic of, hey, you learned ABC, but check it out, that's great. But in order to really leverage this information, you need XYZ. And where are you going to get that? Sign up for, register for a time for Tim Erway's presentation, right? That's how you're really going to move them in a logical way from what they just consumed into wanting to take the next action. And of course, that's naturally what you want your audience to be doing, is having that feeling of, my knowledge right now, even though I've gained knowledge, my knowledge is now incomplete. I cannot necessarily take action on this knowledge if I don't have this other piece of the puzzle, right? So think about, again, the Zeigarnik effect. Think about the people who are in the middle. They're in the middle of completing a puzzle, and they get interrupted. It's creating, again, the mind seeks closure. So people are naturally going to want to opt in to fit, to get the rest of the pieces of the puzzle so they can put it all together and they can have that complete experience they're looking for. So again, what you always want to be doing is giving them that feeling of incompletion. And again, I think, in my opinion, this is the most effective way of writing, and I believe this is more than opinion. I think it's backed up statistically, but this is the most effective way. And in terms of trying to load up on benefits or anything else, make sure you're using this kind of logical process to create that cliffhanger of an experience, that incompletion that your reader or your watcher listener is really going to want to be frustrated if they don't know kind of this next piece of the puzzle to put it all together and complete the loop of the information that they're seeking based on what you're teaching. So that's what I have for you today. That's how you can radically increase your conversions, and that's how you can do it. And the cool thing is, like I said, you don't have to load up on claims. You don't have to load up on, trying to sell these huge benefits. You just have to make it very, very logical. It can be as simple as, hey, you just learned how to get some traffic. Now here's how to convert that traffic into leads, right? How simple is that? So just think about whatever you're teaching. How does that fit into the overall picture? And what is the other information that your reader, watcher, listener is going to need to know to really take action on the information? And then make sure you make that crystal clear. Contextualize what they've just learned in terms of that big picture, and you guys are really going to see your conversions. And again, don't rush this process. Don't have a call to action that's just a sentence long. You can really talk about this process. You'll notice on our posts on the blog, most of our calls to action are around 300 words, generally. You'll usually see a subheading, and you'll usually see about 300 words worth of text to, again, talk about what was just learned and then what's coming next, what you need to know next to really take action on that information. So just check it out. Next time you're reading one of our blog posts, pay attention to how that process and how that psychology is at play. And it's probably something you might not have thought about before. And then do your best to model that with everything you're doing. Again, this translates into everything. You want to create essentially that feeling of incompletion. And that's what I got for you guys today. Hope you have a fantastic Thursday. Make it a great rest of the week. Let's close this week out strong, and I'll see you guys next time.